Okay, let's all please take a seat and get quiet. We have a very exciting session that's about to start. Thank you for that. So I'm really delighted to introduce the next set of speakers. These are groups that aren't necessarily directly affiliated with IDF, but groups that we have strong synergies with in terms of their mission statements and objectives, and some of whom have interlinking programs. I'll read the kind of next set of speakers in the order that they're going to present. And I think it best comes from them to speak to you about what their work is. You'll find that each of them are extremely passionate, and I hope that it'll sync with some of the projects that you're doing, and there'll be an opportunity for you to make contact and work with them at a later point. So first on the schedule, I believe we have Gavin Griffiths with the League of Diathletes. Maybe you can just wave your hand, Gavin, as I go through the series of speakers. Then we have Layla with FIND. And next we have Terry Ackley with DECA. Uros and Jean from YOURAH. And Bastian and Renza from DDoC. And I think what I would really like, if I may, I would really like you to have a think about what these associations are doing and the potential opportunities that you can link your projects with them, or perhaps these are avenues for you to spread messages and to make your projects expand even more and reach more people. So without further ado, Gavin, please come forward, and we would love to hear all about League of Diathletes.
Thanks, Carl. And actually, as Carl said there, League of Diathletes, we had a bit of a rebrand literally about a month ago for a branding reason. So it's League of Diabetes, and Diathlete is the charity that I started a long time ago. So to begin with this room, I was a YLD, scary, but 10 years ago, or thereabouts. So I'm now an LOD, I guess. I'm still coming to terms with that. But what I realized from that experience is that it really starts, in terms of this Congress, this opportunity that you've got together in this room, it starts here in this room with you today. That's where it started for me. And maybe that's one of the best things I can say to you is there's a lot going on in the Congress. There's some good sessions. You can learn things, research, etc. But it's you and your willingness to say hi and connect with somebody you've not met before and learn from each other that really changes the world. And it's you and your everyday experiences living with type 1 diabetes or type 2 or MODY, etc. It's your experiences with diabetes that can change for everybody else in time. So yeah, League of Diabetes, we're about a network. We're very laid back. Maybe that's a problem as well as a positive. The positives, we're not political. It's a voluntary network of organizations. A lot of these organizations have been founded by former YLDs themselves who met up, they have diabetes in common, and they realized the issues in their country. And I think my experience in YLD taught me that there's a shared issue. We can all improve things in each country. It's so different. Health systems are different. There are different challenges, and you're the driving force to change those challenges. But what we all shared in common was the fact that we all felt, and maybe you agree, that diabetes education as a whole, the approach to it really needs to relate better to the people who deal with this 24/7. And that includes absolutely the psychological side of living with that. And for me, that really changes when you get people in the same room for the first time, you meet each other. That is a real subconscious psychological shift in the right direction. And I've seen that with young people, I've seen that with people diagnosed as adults. So that's what our projects have been about with Diathlete first and now LOD in the world. So if I share it here, I'm actually going to invite you, because I know you've been in sessions all day, to stand up a moment. And I'm going to give you an example of what we kind of do to think outside of the box a little bit. So if I was to ask you, imagine you're a person coming to a session for the first time, what is a hypo? I'm sure you all know the answer very well, a bit too well. What is a hypo? Does anyone want to shout that out? What's a hypo? That's it. Low blood sugars going down. So if I say hypo, squat down low if you want, all right? Hypo. And then on the other side, what's a hyper? High blood sugars, right? So jumping up high. So hyper, hypo. And what are we trying to do? We're trying to get on target, right? So if I say on target, we're surfing on a surfboard. Okay, so we're on target, we're hypo. So what do we need when we're hypo? Bit of glucose, yeah? Okay, so we're gonna, when I say glucose, you're gonna spin around really fast, do some glucose spins in there. So we're hypo, we had our glucose, we're hoping to be on target. But if we liked our glucose a little bit too much, we might end up hyper. Which means we need to get a bit more insulin on board. So what's insulin? Tough question, right, actually? We just get on with it, right? We just insulin, okay. So anyone want to give me a real answer about insulin? Hormone, yeah, very good. And of course, we take that ourselves, so we don't produce it in most cases. So insulin, get a little insulin wiggle. Get that hormone around your body. All right, insulin. So we're hyper, we had our insulin, and we're hoping to be back on target. But we took too much insulin and we ended up hypo, so we had some more glucose. So yeah, you can sit back down a second. But this is a practical example. And that's what we share as a network, really. It's just being a little bit more creative, a little bit more outside of the box to, if anything, and it's no crime in doing this, to make diabetes talk a little bit more fun. And I believe in that fun and in that enjoyment of talking about diabetes in a different approach, you actually change lives because there's a psychological shift from I'm being lectured to by my health professional when it's gone in one ear and then I've gone home and it's gone out the other ear to, well, actually, this is something that I've now met somebody else with this in common. And that leaves a lasting impression. And I believe that's one of the absolute tools that you can use in your projects too. So that's what we're about with League of Diabetes. We create these grassroots ways of talking about diabetes, these even more workshops that we do and diabetes camps. And we share that around the world. And what I've seen around the world is we've taken a slightly different approach. Someone like Anna Manwar in Pakistan, she took some teachings that we did at a training session and she turned it into something a little bit different and it was really successful out in Pakistan. And I've seen Mo do that in Kuwait and out in Brazil with Nati and Sana, you probably all know Sana, in Pakistan. And so we've kind of shared things as a network. So that's, in a nutshell, what we're about with the League of Diabetes is trying to make diabetes connect with the people and doing the types of projects such as camps, such as workshops that can make it a little bit more fun to leave a lasting impression. So you can follow us online, and if you're starting something new, it can be an organization, it can be a group, it's nothing really too formal. You're more than welcome to get in touch and be a part of the network too. So that's pretty much all from us, but it's great to be back here with YLD. I feel young again.
Can you show me one of those insulins again, that groovy move?
You want a bit of an insulin wiggle there?
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Gavin. Let's give him a round of applause, everyone. Thank you. Layla, I think you're up next.
So hi everyone again. I'm sure you already caught on. I'm one of you guys, currently a YLD. But I also wanted to develop a career in diabetes that was more focused on other aspects that patients don't tackle. And I stumbled upon FIND, the Global Alliance for Diagnostics. So FIND comes from Switzerland. You can... Yeah.
Would you like me to do it, or would you like to do it yourself?
Okay. So FIND, the Global Alliance for Diagnostics, is based in Switzerland, in Geneva, but they also have country offices in South Africa, Kenya, India, and some other countries. And they have been mostly focused on infectious diseases, but recently they launched also an NCD program. And that NCD program also includes working in diabetes. So they have been collaborating with many organizations, including the WHO, to follow some of those recommendations and build strategies that are going to help people living with the condition. And what have they also been doing? They have been including people with lived experience, which I'm very proud to say I am the first person that has a condition they're working on working for them. And I'm very grateful for that opportunity, and I have to say they have been amazing in recognizing the opinion of a patient, of a person who has a condition. Because we all know that people who work in this field have a different perspective. And when they actually listen to you, to what you need, their perspectives change. And I'm very honored to be part of this organization. I think going on, you're going to see that they've been focusing on some work that is not such a, let's say, sexy subject, but they try to fill that gap. So they try to address the equity gap in access to diagnostic supplies. So in diabetes, it's diagnostic tools like test strips, CGMs, and HbA1c. So our approach is to bring lower cost blood glucose meters and strips to low middle income countries, and we do it by pre-negotiating those prices with manufacturers, which means that for the same product, they're gonna have a lower price in order to be able to sell it in low and middle income countries at an affordable range for people living with a condition. They generate performance and usability evidence in LMICs for diabetes technologies. So they work with manufacturers, also with startups of diabetes supplies. For example, they have been working with some CGM manufacturers that are about to enter the market to see how they can build a better strategy to implement that on the market. Because we all feel like manufacturers take a certain approach without really taking into consideration what people with lived experience need. And they are trying to fill and give them the information of actually what a person living with the condition needs. They have been also working on improving access to continuous glucose monitoring in LMICs, which I've been part of. So we're building a general strategy that all manufacturers will be able to use in order to adopt getting into a market of a poor country, if you can say it like that, because we know that you can't expect low-income countries to build the same system as a high-income country, because it doesn't work like that. You need to adopt the strategy, you need to adopt the product, you need to adopt the way you're gonna work yourself into that country. So the activities we have been working on for diabetes, not much, but we are going to expand that in the near future. So together with the Access Study team, we have been developing a target product profile for new glucose self-monitoring technologies, which includes measuring glucose over contact lenses, earpieces, and similar things. It has been really interesting in collaboration with many other organizations, and it has been done in countries that aren't really being used for research, like Mali, Kyrgyzstan, Peru, and over 200 people with diabetes participated in the research. What I've been doing with them, we had focus group discussions with people living with diabetes in LMICs. Some of the people here attended those focus group discussions on how to build a go-to-market strategy for manufacturers to come into those markets. And I believe we have been the first organization to do this, because you don't see much of that communication going on. In the future, FIND will work on establishing a diabetes advisory group, and we're gonna look at many of you and ask you probably, or you can actually also reach out. And if you're interested, we're gonna see on how we can make that happen, because we want to include more people living with diabetes in the decision-making process. The advisory group is gonna be a group of people that's gonna meet on a certain basis, and we're gonna ask you opinions about a certain topic and how you feel as a person living with the condition. How can we as an organization work to improve that certain thing working on? And these are some of the questions we have for you as an organization. What can FIND, what else would you like to see FIND do? What more can we do for people with diabetes? And how can we better include people with lived experiences into the decision-making process? Feel free to get in touch with me. And if you have also from a country perspective something you would like to address within your country and maybe feel like you can contribute to the cause, please also feel free to reach out, and maybe we can start a wonderful collaboration to improve access to diabetes supplies and diagnostic supplies in low and middle income countries. Thank you.
Thank you, Leila. Next up, I believe we have DECA, Diabetes Education and Camping Association. I'm playing double duty here because I've recently joined the board at Diabetes Education and Camping Association, and I'm delighted to have them here to speak a little bit about what we're up to in North America and beyond. So Terry Ackley, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Kyle, and thank you all for being here. I want to talk about diabetes camps, and so I want to talk about fun. And so this is how we're going to get started. This is about just different resources, and that we are the resource community for people who operate diabetes camps. And we have a booth here today, and we're having such a good time just meeting people from around the world who are doing outstanding programs. And I want to start with a little video. So, Kyle, do you know how I might be able to?
Let's hope that magic works. Let's hit the right button.
Okay.
This beautiful video is playing. Can I have people raise their hands if you're involved in camps in your countries and communities? Easy. Thank you.
Okay, go forward, please.
A brief stop, sorry.
Okay, thank you. So I'm excited when I looked around the room and I saw so many names, so many hands that were raised. I'm happy to see that, and just think about you guys can all be in pictures like that. I'm a dad of a child who was 11 months old when she developed diabetes, and she went to camp when she was 7 or 8. And that's how I got introduced to diabetes camp. I sent her so she'd learn to give her own shot. And so she did. And it changed her life. And so think about what you can do to touch the life of a child and to change them for the rest of their lives. She's 42 years old now, and still I've got a t-shirt in my booth that one of her best friends from being a leader in training gave her, or because he created it for the diabetes camp. So diabetes camps, you know, they really provide, it's a family more than anything else. It's a community, just like this is a community. This is a community for kids with diabetes. The most powerful tool of diabetes camps are young leaders. So think about that, the influence that you can have over children and young adults because of who you are, because they look to you to motivate them, to teach them. So we do want to teach them about diabetes. Emily learned how to give her own shot. Through the years, she learned about other things about diabetes. She learned about nutrition. You saw the carb counts as far as for the food. And so those kinds of things we teach about diabetes because we want them to live happy lives and do this well. We also realize that diabetes has challenges sometimes that you don't see. There's social, emotional kinds of challenges that come along. And we have kids every summer who are dealing with this, and we're trying to help them with that too. And so, but the real thing behind camp is it's fun. You know, you have so much fun when you go to camp. And we as DECA, we're the Diabetes Education and Camping Association, and I say that we're the professional association of diabetes camps. And so we started it off by providing an international diabetes camping conference. We continue to do that. If you come to our booth, you'll see our poster about our upcoming conference, and I'll tell you more about that. We gather and share best practice resources, different kinds of camp manuals or job descriptions or schedules. We promote diabetes camps. We have a find a camp location on our website, so any camp in the diabetes, we're doing diabetes camping, they can have their camp listed there. And I think the other really important thing we do is we're a network. We're a community. We use virtual communications tools so that people can join and they can interact with each other and they can share resources. And we promote diabetes camps to industry. You know, part of the reason we're here is so that we can reach out to industries to see how that we can build support for your camps coming from them. Our conference is coming up in Orlando, Florida. Does anybody like to go to Florida, or would they like to go to Florida in the U.S., near Walt Disney World? So you can come. We do ask that you come to the conference part of the time. And so we'll be there. It's going to be in person, but it's also going to be virtual. It's going to be live. So you can be anywhere in the world, and you can participate in our conference. And so you can even use the code right up there to register and be our guest. And that's going to work well, I think, for those who would like to go. We want you to come by the exhibit hall booth. We'll be there all week, and we'll talk with you about camp and get information to you. As you see us, we're in booth C3. And we want you to just connect with us. That's my contact information over on the left. If you decide to take a picture of the QR code, that's our website. It's going to tell you more about that conference. It's going to connect you directly to the resources that we share in our resource library. It does not require a login. So you can access all of that and you can stay informed about us. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Terry. So now I would like to call YOURAH and Jen, representing YOURAH. And if you could please explain for those who are not familiar with the acronym what YOURAH means.
Sure. Hello, everyone. We're Jean and Uroš, and we're both members of the YOURAH group, which is IDF-Europe's youth initiative. So the IDF-Europe's group of the youth, obviously. It consists of youth advocates from the European countries, the advocates who participated at the Youth Leadership Camp, which is a program of IDF-Europe similar to this program that you're participating in, the YLD. So we were founded in 2017, and we've been, doing projects with IDF-Europe since. So YOURAH, members of YOURAH, have been participating and taking part in IDF-Europe's activities, so supporting IDF-Europe. It is very important for an organization such as IDF-Europe, which should represent the voice of patients, to have a pool of young diabetes advocates to turn to at any time. So that's why our representatives have joined IDF-Europe in many activities on policy levels, EU-funded projects. So all the activities that IDF-Europe does, YOURAH and its members are part of it. We even had a collaboration with the YLD program in 2018 when there was sort of a thing with a regional project. So each region was trying to do a project on their own, each region of YLD. So we joined forces and did a project together in 2018. So hopefully we'll have the opportunity to work with the YLDs in the future again. Finally, as we said, so YOURAH is supporting activities of IDF-Europe since 2017, but also the idea of YOURAH is to provide a space for young advocates with diabetes to do projects on their own. So young people living with diabetes for other young people living with diabetes. And that's why we had a hackathon several months ago, which Jean will tell you a bit more about in a second.
Thank you, YOURAH. Hi, everyone. My name is Jean, and I am the youth coordinator for IDF-Europe. I actually came from the YLL program during the summer, and then I started working as the youth coordinator for IDF-Europe. And I had the privilege of being able to collaborate with the alumni from the camps from over the last 10 years. We had an amazing committee to put together a hackathon that happened in October. So does anyone know what a hackathon is? Have people participated in hackathons before? Put your hand up if you have, or put your hand up if... Yeah, we've nodding faces? Okay, awesome. So our hackathon was really fun because it was bringing together the alumni from the last 10 years of camps. And I think we know from all of the people in this room, there's nothing like having a room full of diabetes advocates together. So we had a lot of fun with this. The goal of the hackathon was to develop projects, concepts, initiatives around creating awareness around the blue circle. So these lovely blue circle pins that we're all wearing here, we wanted to create awareness around the blue circle to the same degree that the pink ribbon represents breast cancer. So everyone knows the pink ribbon? Yeah? Yeah. So for us, we all know what the blue circle is. But we wanted to create a wider awareness around this, and we basically left it up to the wonderful 25 youth advocates who came from 17 different countries to develop concepts, initiatives, and projects. It wasn't prescriptive, they were just left to their own devices with the one goal of creating awareness around the blue circle. So we had 4 fabulous projects that we have here in summary. So you'll hear a lot more about these over the coming year if you follow us on Instagram. We're on Instagram as YOURAH. We had 4 brilliant groups coming together who developed projects around healthcare professionals being involved, around a social media campaign, around kind of wider marketing in the general public, and as well we had people being the blue circle, so that they would wear the blue circle to show that they understood diabetes and how to support people with diabetes. So it was really, really exciting, and we would love to welcome anyone if they'd like to collaborate with the projects in the coming year. We want to really bring this whole community together as much as possible. So that is YOURAH, and that's our wonderful hackathon. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now our friends from DDoC, Bastian and Renza.
I feel like we don't need to say anything. No, really. Put your hand up right now if you're a DDoC voice. Stand up, stand up, stand up, let's see you. Or if you're in some way connected to DDoC. There are more. Yes, okay. I sort of feel like this is the best thing that we can do is say, please go and talk to these incredible young advocates because they are part of the DDoC network.
Sorry, it's not on. It's not on? Shout louder.
No, here.
All right. Oh, I have a loud voice, so that's why I sometimes don't notice when the mic ain't on. So with this, it's much better. All right. So I wish I would have been a young leader like you guys, but I was diagnosed quite late, and when I first got to know about IDF and this program, I was already too old. So instead of joining an amazing program like this, I decided to set up something by myself. It was a one-man army 10 years ago. Now DDoC is a huge community of people like you, and many of them are here part of the YLD thing. DDoC is a network. It's a network of diabetes advocates. What we don't do, maybe that's easier to understand and to explain, we don't do camps. We don't do so much fun stuff, although we're having a lot of fun. We do the doc days, and we do the doc talks, and we do the International World Diabetes Day virtual event, etc. But we don't go out there and have our own opinion that we put upon others, or we say this is DDoC and we think this and this needs to happen. DDoC is a bit different in that regard. It's a platform for others to stand on. That's what we say. It's a platform for people like you to join, to stand on, to learn, to collaborate with each other, to work together, and then to do what you think, what you know is best to do in your country, in your region, wherever you're from. And we're not going to tell you what that is because Tino just left, but I don't know what people in Zimbabwe need, but he does. And I don't know what people in Pakistan need, but Sana definitely does, and she's doing great. So the idea of DDoC has always been to bring people together, and it has always been the idea to bring people together face to face. So in that way, it's very similar to the YLD program. It's self-funded, we're completely independent. We collaborate very closely with IDF-Europe, with IDF, with Life for a Child, with many other organizations. You've maybe seen the Blue Balloon Challenge that we've done together with Medtronic to raise funds for Life for It's these kind of things we do, but they are always being co-created with the community with people like you. There's another big difference, I think. It's not necessarily a youth program. What DDoC tries to do is bring together some of the best diabetes advocates in the country to then join this international network and then co-create, collaborate, brainstorm, and see what we can do together. And we have to talk about the DDoC Voices program.
And definitely not a youth program as Exhibit A, and B, I might add as well. I think, though, one of the things that we really, there are two, we love a hashtag, right, because we started on Twitter, but a couple of things. We genuinely believe that any conversations about diabetes have to start, continue and end by centering people living with diabetes. We really, truly do believe nothing about us without us. You will hear us say that all the time. You will see it, you know, we will wear it. We have tote bags with it. Nothing about us without us. The best people to talk diabetes are people living with diabetes. We should be centred all the time. Our lived experience is expertise. So one of the things that I think is really important is that we position ourselves that way, and we do that by being at these sorts of conferences. This is incredible. When I first started in advocacy, having people with diabetes walking the halls of conferences was really uncommon. People used to look at me and think, what is she doing here? Now we are loud, we are proud, and we absolutely should be here. Nothing about us without us.
And I think that's maybe the most important program we do these days. You probably will have heard about it. It's the DDoC Voices Scholarship Program. We believe that people like us, people like you, people living with diabetes should not only do great fun stuff and work with organizations, etc. We believe we have to be where the real decisions in medicine, in research, and in policy are being made. And that is, to some degree at least, at the biggest international conferences in the world. Those are ATTD, EASD, ISPAT, IDF, and a couple of others. So what we have started, actually more than 10 years ago, I started working with big corporates like Roche, like Abbott. You might have heard of the Roche Diabetes Meetup back then, or the DX events that Abbott is running. I was actually the one writing the concept for those. I loved it because it allowed us to bring people funded by pharma. I didn't like it because it meant that they got to select who was coming and they got to decide who was coming again, and mostly that was based on how many followers you had on Facebook or Twitter and whether you would write favorably about the event or their products, which was not what I had in mind. These days, the DDoC Voices program is completely independent. We get a number of companies to put money in a pond, and then we take that money, but we take our own decisions with a big group of seasoned diabetes advocates and decide who do we want to bring to these conferences. The DDoC Voices Scholarship Program takes care of access. That's the most important thing. But access in this case meaning you get a free pass to attend conferences that just a couple of years ago were closed to people like us because they are for the HCPs only or the nurses and doctors only. So access is the most important part, but access includes, especially for those of you coming from low and middle income countries, it includes paying for your flights and your hotels, taking care of your visa issues, etc. And then being there, nothing about us without us, being at the table, meeting all these important people that take decisions in policy and medicine and research, and people from industry, because we really do believe in working with industry as advocates. That is where the magic happens. And I would like to encourage you to take a look at our website, ddoc.org/voices is where you will find everything about the DDoC Voices program. Steffi and Hannah have been doing a great job in putting together more FAQs to explain this a little bit better of how the process works, but the application is pretty straightforward. At the same time, we have to be a bit careful because we already have received way more than 100 applications and we only have very limited spots for this. It's a very highly competitive process, I have to say that. But it is great to see some people here already and maybe some more after this conference applying and joining us for the next conference, which will be in Berlin, in DDoC's home city where we started. That's the ATTD conference, or EASD also in Europe this year in Rotterdam, or ISPAT coming, EASD in Hamburg, or ISPAT next year coming to Rotterdam. Go check it out. Even if you apply and you only get a virtual pass, don't be discouraged, because that's what we usually do with people who we don't know yet. The first round is usually a virtual scholarship. We have a lot of virtual events leading up to a conference where we talk with the partners, where you can network, etc. And then there's a second and a third chance, and we'd love to see you at one of these conferences where the real magic happens and where decisions are being taken for us, with us.
And just remember, if you are applying, it is a competitive process. But what we are all about is community. Community is everything. It is absolutely everything. So we want to know what you're doing in your community. We want to know how you are paying it forward. So whilst we all have wonderful stories to tell, if you're going to say, I'm going to go and tell my story to everyone, that's not necessarily helping to really build your community. It's really important. We need to hear stories, but we want to hear about what you're doing in your community to make life better for people with diabetes. Tell us that story. That's what we want to hear. So please do apply. It's an incredible network. It really is. And it's the only one of its type in the world. So do think about it. ddoc.org.
ddoc.org. Diabetes advocacy is hard work, everyone. Don't forget that. But it's also a lot of fun once you're in it. And it's great that you're here, and it's wonderful that you gave us the chance to present. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys, and we'll share the links for the application later on. So, last but not least, Emma from Life for Child.
Is this working? No. Do you want to pass me that one? Just take that. Is that working? Great. I just thought I'd sit next to Bruno as he looked quite lonely up here. So, hi everybody. Thank you so much to this wonderful group for inviting me. It's so good to be here with you all today, and a nod to DDoc because I met quite a lot of you at ISPAD just a couple of months ago. Nice to see YOURAH as well, and Tapi in the audience. I just want to say that you all not only inspire me, but you remind me of my roots, and you help keep me accountable and more full of, purpose going forward. So like I said, I've met many of you. I'm not sure how many of you know me. I'm Emma, and I've been through many seasons of having diabetes. I've been a diabetes advocate for almost 25 years now. I was diagnosed in 1999 in the US and California, and I guess it's both a blessing and a curse growing up with a very bubbly personality. But I had connections with quite a lot of empathetic healthcare professionals in California, and I started getting involved at a young age with public speaking, advocating to members of US Congress about increasing funding for diabetes research and awareness programs. I spoke at diabetes camps. I was part of a camp that Terry knows well, and we share some mutual connections there. In speaking in those diabetes camps, I encouraged my young peers as well to get involved in advocacy too. I made many deep friendships from many different types of people sitting across many different aisles of the room, and I consider myself very lucky to maintain those friendships today. But to Bastian's point about advocacy being hard, I'm still an advocate today, but I have taken time out from this space, to find room for my purpose living with diabetes. I did take a break, as people do, but I came back to this space joining Life for a Child. And I'm sure many of you will be familiar with Life for a Child, but Life for a Child is an international diabetes NGO. So we are a global operation supporting thousands of young people around the globe. And as we've grown, and we've grown quite a lot in the last few years, we've always stayed very true to our founding principle of partnering with local healthcare providers to encourage this long-term sustainability. Without sustainability, you really have to think about, the exit strategy going forward. And from Life for a Child's perspective, our goal is to be redundant in the settings that we serve and build capacity from there. So in terms of the sustainability side of things, we partner with already established diabetes centers, be those diabetes clinics, NGOs, or mission hospitals, and also as well as some governments. But partnering with governments is really, really difficult. It really is the golden ticket to be able to partner with a Ministry of Health, because that's where you have the engagement, that's where you have the attention, but it's really hard. I think that's one of the hardest parts of sustainable diabetes advocacy, is getting connected with, the people in the room, that make the decisions. As of a couple months ago, we are currently supporting over 35,000 young people living with diabetes in 44 countries. And really, there are four main prongs to what we do. Well, we provide essential diabetes supplies. We provide education and build capacity there. We carry out research, and this research covers really important missing gaps in terms of the data, because not all countries, have epidemiological data. And I know that I say the word epidemiological, and you might hear incidence that, prevalence that, but really what that is about is how many people with diabetes are in a country? How many people should there be? How many people are dying when they shouldn't be? And finally, the sort of last prong of what we do is what I'm super engaged with, and that's in advocacy. And our work is to empower advocates and to influence the global health agenda so that it is inclusive of all of the things that young people with diabetes and their families need to not only, survive, but thrive. Looking back, just reflecting here, looking back on my time with diabetes advocacy, I find it, just from my perspective, and I'm sure people will have different ones, but I find it very telling just how back to basics advocacy has gotten. But nevertheless, the basics are very important. And in terms of how Life for a Child views the basics, these are them. Everything we do is grounded in the belief that access to diabetes care is an inherent human right. It's not more complicated or less complicated than that. And this is what we continue to advocate for. And just to kind of break this down for you, that can be spread across three particular levels. So first we have the community level. And on the community level, we run advocacy workshops to link grassroots campaigners and local organizations to leading experts, because that allyship is really, really, really important. We have welcomed high-level speakers like the United Nations Special Rapporteur on the right to health. This was Dr. Tlaleng Mofokeng from South Africa. She joined us for an African advocacy human rights workshop, and she was a keynote speaker for our session on teaching advocates how to integrate these human rights-based approaches into their own initiatives. And then the second level is the national level, and I spoke about the research that we carry out, the epidemiological research, the universal health coverage research, psychosocial research, and through that research, we collaborate with local stakeholders to generate, missing gaps in evidence and other advocacy tools that really help advance the case for universal access to insulin and other aspects of diabetes care with governments. And finally, at the international level, we collaborate with many, many organizations. We feel very lucky to build bridges and to be placed along bridges as we go. And we do this with other transnational health agencies to really raise awareness of the particular needs, as I said, of children and young people with diabetes, because, we all know that there are many global initiatives going forward, and it is so important that the particular needs of young people and also the soft things like education are seen just as critical to the supply side of things. And I actually take back what I said. Education is not soft. I think it should be viewed as a really hard, necessary aspect of self-management, and I think that needs to be heard, at least from my perspective. And just a few little recommendations I have going forward. First, I just want to say I'm really looking, I know there's a little bit of time for discussion. I'm looking forward to hearing from you and answering any questions that have come up. But if I can, leave you with a few parting words, I would just like to encourage you all to make connections and also build them for others too as you go along. I would also say step outside your comfort zone. You really are, we all know you are the leading experts. We are the leading experts here. And every perspective you have is valuable, and it can shape the future. And, finally, just back to something that Bastian tapped on was, don't be afraid to tap out and fill your glass up if you need to do that. Make no mistake, advocacy is a beautiful connective gift that I'm sure we are all very grateful for, but it's not always glamorous. I think we can all agree, and it can be overwhelming. It certainly has been for me. And from my own experience, sometimes you have to go away to come back. And this can make you stronger, and I'm sure that this community will always be here for you, after an hour's break, after a week's break, even after a year's break. However long you need, you can always count on each other because you are building something so strong and so durable together. So thank you.
Thank you, Emma. Thanks for all the amazing partners and allies that share maybe from different approaches, but definitely the same mission, which is to change the life of those living with diabetes.